Flash is a show that without a doubt has left a legacy behind, not only for being one of the longest lasting DC shows of all time, but also left a legacy for all the wrong reasons and could also be known as one of the greatest downfalls of any TV show quality wise. At some point, this show was arguably the best superhero TV show out there. However, there is no denying that although the show still had some great moments in the later seasons, it still faced probably the biggest downfall I have ever seen in a TV show. This is because of a lot of reasons, changing the main focus to your side characters instead of your main character, which is just crazy, forcing characters that no one cares about and giving them solo focused episodes once again without focusing on your main character, a lot of unnecessary filler, a big tonal shift, a lot of showrunner changes, and the show lost what it did best, which was have mystery integrated into the season to get people interested. I will always say this about regardless which season it is of the show, Grant Gustin was always a highlight. He always brought his A game in everything he did, but unfortunately sometimes there's only so much he could do. But what if I told you there is actually a way to watch The Flash without getting bored, like watching it and it just stays good? Obviously, with this way, you're going to have to skip a lot of episodes, but it's still a way to actually enjoy the show even in the later seasons. And what if I told you, even in the later seasons, there are times you get peak superhero TV and witness one of the best episodes or just best moments of the show? Now, this video was actually inspired by Lex Reviews from TikTok, who has made this video already, but I just want to make my own spin on it and, just break it all down. This will be no spoilers in case there are newcomers who haven't seen the show, and there will be timestamps at times where I will talk about spoilers, so, you can arrange that based on the timestamps in the description down below. But the first thing you are going to do is actually you're going to watch the first 5 seasons of the show in full. Now, there is no denying that the first 4 seasons of the show was at its best. It had all the right things, the main focus on your main character, The Flash. They found a great balance with Barry's CSI stuff, managing things as The Flash. Team Flash was its best. Everyone had something to do. No one really overshadowed the main character. And the villains were great. They were perfect. The season-long mysteries and the reveals were one of the biggest shock values in almost all of these 4 seasons. Everything from these first 3 seasons in particular was perfect and definitely the most memorable out of the show. Now, there are people that do say season 4 is really where the show fell off, but here is why I suggest still watching season 4 and even season 5. Firstly, starting off with season 4, like I said, this is no spoilers until where I do mention spoilers, then you can skip through. Yes, this is where the writing falls off, and we do get introduced to a lot of cringy dialogue, but believe it or not, the goods of season 4 far outweigh the bad in my opinion. Season 4 actually has a great payoff from the season 3 cliffhanger, and they're also able to establish quite a good season long storyline and how they introduce new metahumans. The season does have a very interesting storyline with a compelling villain, that being the Thinker, and we get some very, very good episodes in this season with new and unique storylines that just gives this show a fresh feel, especially an arc that takes place like literally around the mid-season. I'm going to say episode 10 to 13 from memory, somewhere around there. Now, for the first 3 seasons, we had a speedster villain, and bringing in a non-speedster villain for season 4, having this idea of the fastest mind alive versus the fastest man alive, it was just new and exciting. Devo was a great villain that posed a threat to Barry, and when you do watch it, you do see that. In The Flash season 4, the suit was one of the best, Team Flash was good. This was the season where by far the VFX, despite being a low budget show, looked its best. This also helps with the fact that we do see Barry do some pretty cool things using his ability in this season that we don't really see in previous seasons. We do also have, I would say, the best crossover this season as well. And we, in my opinion, have the best episode the show has ever had in this season. It is a filler episode, but it's still the best episode of the show in my opinion, that being season 4 episode 15, titled Enter Flash Time. Season 4 definitely has a lot of moments that makes it worthwhile watching. This season does also have some integrated mystery into it, but it's not as big as the previous seasons. It does have the mystery girl mystery, and you do later on find out that it is going to be a big character, so it does still have that sense of intrigue that the previous seasons brought, just not as big. Now, of course, there is no defending the bad end this season. There's a lot of horrible episodes, and we do have one of the worst episodes the show has ever done in the whole show. The side plots are horrible. There's a lot of horrible dialogue in the season. The Flash is often nerfed very badly at times, even worse than previous seasons, especially after finding out what happened to him, all of which just made it more annoying. Now, this is where I will be going into spoilers for season 4, so for those who haven't actually watched the show, skip over to the season 5 non-spoilers section. Now, what really gives this season a miss, in my opinion, is a plethora of things. From Iris, who is a journalist, somehow becoming the leader of a team of superheroes. It is not her place to be that, and she makes statements like, well, I'm the leader of this team. And this should not be the case at all. Iris was terribly written this season, and it was clear that the writers had no idea what to do with one of the main characters of the show, which is just shocking. It really sucked because you do see in earlier seasons and even in later seasons that when written right and you focus on what she's supposed to be doing, Iris does actually stand out. Now, another thing that was disappointing was Devo. Despite being a great villain when played by the main actor, the whole idea of the body swapping introduced with the bus metas and stuff like that, it really put down how great of a villain he could have been. Now, towards the end of the season, he does actually become his best, and this is where Devo really does stand out. So yes, the downfall of the Flash does start with season 4, but it's not as bad as people say it is. Like, the goods far outweighs the bad, and that's why I would say the Flash season 4 is definitely worth watching. Now, like I said, now going into the season 5 non-spoiler part, I will admit season 5 is not actually a good season. It is one of the weaker seasons of the show. However, the parts the season does good, it does perfectly. Like, the things it does good, it's a 10 out of 10. But the things it does bad, it becomes like a 4 or a 3 out of 10. And the stronger parts of the show still has the elements that makes you love the show in the first place. Not only with the cast, but also this season has some of the best mystery, has the craziest moments and craziest twists in the show overall, and still is definitely worth watching because of this, in my opinion. We do have such a great Team Flash family dynamic this season. The VFX carried on from season 4 are just as good. I'd say season 5 might be the second best looking season in terms of its VFX. And the cliffhanger for this season does actually set up something very big, all of it which is definitely worth watching. However, that being said, somehow the writing this season just became even worse. The Flash costume was the worst, making it very hard to look at. The villains, both main and side, were terrible. We had more filler episodes this season, and at times the season felt like a stupid drama show, but still the goods of the season does help uplift the season and does definitely make it more watchable. Now, going into some spoilers, so if you are new to the show, skip over to where I talk about The Flash Season 6, and there will be a twist with the way you do watch Season 6, but firstly, this is why you should watch The Flash Season 5 spoilers version. The way they tied everything together, connecting the dots with the Reverse Flash storyline and Cicada's dagger was so perfectly handled, in my opinion. It just definitely makes this season worth watching. We do also have the 100th episode of the show in this season, and we get all of our favorite characters back. It's a big time travel episode and just lots of fun. The crossover for this season is also very enjoyable. The dynamic you get to see with the growing relationship of Barry, Iris, and Nora is something very nice to watch as well. The Crisis on Infinite Earths cliffhanger alone makes this season worth watching. However, like I did say, the writing this season is just terrible. They don't know what they want to do with Iris this season again. Nora, despite being the same age as Barry, still acts like a child, and it becomes very annoying. And the worst part was the villain. The villain was so badly written, so overpowered to a point. Cicada posed a very big threat and yes, was menacing, until they found a way to defeat him almost every episode, and he just kept running away, and this became repetitive for so long, to a point they had to introduce another version of the same villain just to stretch it out for 22 episodes. And this newer version of the villain somehow became even worse despite being more powerful. Now, season 6 is where you do take the different approach to watching this. This season actually does have something called a graphic novel approach, where the season is split into two halves with two different storylines. Now, this is the season where the pandemic takes place, so there are a lot of things they tried to do but couldn't, and you can't really blame them for it. But this is the proper downfall of the show, and you are only going to watch the first half of The Flash season 6. Now, the first half of season 6 is not all that bad. In fact, it is pretty good. I would go as far to say it's better than season 5 for sure. It does follow a storyline that has been set up for years, and it does bring a lot of intense moments with it. It is a strong season long storyline with a very menacing and scary villain that does sort of bring the vibe of the past seasons. Because of the intensity of the storyline, you do actually get some decent writing at times as well. Other than The Flash season 8, this is where Iris really does shine. After 6 seasons, they finally get the character right. We do get some good writing with her especially. There is a big crossover that I would say is definitely worth watching because it does affect the show going forward. I would have also recommended watching the episode after the crossover, so that being episode 10. However, it does have a cliffhanger and some story points does set up the next storyline going into the next half of season 6. However, if you do choose to ignore it, then I will definitely recommend watching episode 10, so it does explain what happens after that crossover. However, like I said, I wouldn't recommend watching the next half of season 6 because other than that, there isn't really anything really too relevant going on in the back half of the season. Now, going into the spoiler sections of season 6, so be sure to skip over to the season 7 non-spoiler part if you are a newcomer. I don't think there needs to be anything said regarding the Bloodwork arc. Like I said, Ramsey as a villain and the way he challenged the Flash was great. This half of the season did have a great tone, and the crisis build-up did definitely help with that. And although the next half of the season does introduce some things in the post-crisis timeline and the new storyline, nothing big really happens, especially because I am going to recommend skipping the Flash season 7 entirely, because again, you don't really need to know anything from that season aside from the fact that Caitlin and Frost do split up. But because, like I said, I recommend skipping season 7 entirely, and I recommend skipping the back half of the season of season 6, you're not even going to realize that the Speed Force died, for example, so it is fine as it is. But now going into the non-spoiler season 7 section. Now, this is the season you skip entirely. This season is so unwatchably horrible. There's nothing good about this season. You do not need to know anything important that comes from this season. Everything good I have mentioned before in previous seasons is reversed in this season, and everything I've mentioned that is bad somehow becomes even worse. Team Flash is too unnecessarily crowded, and they focus on characters no one cares about. This season prioritizes side characters over its main character. It's just horrible. The only episode I'm going to recommend watching is episode 12, and that is because it isn't even a good episode. Something quite big does happen in it, so that's why I would recommend watching it, because it does affect the show going forward. It is a filler episode, however, I will say this is a very fun episode and does give you a nostalgic feel to previous old seasons, so definitely do give it a watch. Now, going into The Flash Season 8 non-spoiler section. This is the season where the show does manage to save itself. Everything about the season is great. They fixed the writing, the tone of the season is great, the fillers are great, the VFX are not that bad. The 3 season long storylines are incredible. This season does have 3 graphic novels. They're all very, very good. Once again, we have established mystery in all 3 parts of the season and does give a very satisfying conclusion for all the storylines. This season genuinely feels like you are watching episodes from season 1. Even with the filler episodes, some of the filler episodes are actually quite good. I really like how every character has something to do. They are not just focused on Team Flash. The Flash as a character is the best he's ever been in this season, and we do see him use some quite cool abilities that we don't see him do before. He can finally defeat villains without getting help and without someone being in his ear. It's just great, and just it just makes me very happy because this is a season that I genuinely do love, and we do have tons and tons of surprises in this season. The season starts off with a crossover, and we do get some of the craziest moments we've ever seen on the show. Not only in this crossover, but just in the whole season overall, we do have some crazy moments as well. Now, you can choose to end your Flash watch along over here as the season finale for this season, because I will say the season 8 finale does have a satisfying conclusion and it does feel like a series finale. So you can actually choose to just conclude with the show overall over here. And I would recommend this because, in my opinion, this finale is miles better than the finale you will end up watching if you choose to actually finish the show. This is the better finale than what we do get in season 9. If you do choose to watch season 9, then skip to season 9, episode 9, because as much as it pains me to say this, as the final season, this is, in my opinion, the second worst of the show. It is just horrible. However, both episodes 9 and 10 are great episodes and they're quite big. Episode 9 is a filler episode, however, is the best episode of the season, and once again does give you a nostalgic feel to the older seasons. But episode 10 is definitely worth a watch because it is a full circle moment for the show, and you do get quite some insane moments in that episode. You can choose to watch that episode alone and end it right there. So you can watch episode 9 and 10 and end it right there. However, episode 10 does actually end in a cliffhanger that is going to make you want to finish off the storyline because it does set up the final storyline of the show. So you can choose to end it over there, or you can choose to watch the final remaining episodes of the season. You can do either way, it doesn't really matter. They're not the best, but at least you do conclude with the show entirely. So you can choose to finish watching season 9 after episode 9 if you want to. However, I will say the finale is just terrible, and it does genuinely pain me to say this because as the final season, everyone had high hopes for this season, but The Flash season 9 is genuinely an unwatchable season, personally for me. Everything about the season, the writing, all the villains, the fillers, all the side characters, the VFX, all of it is just terrible. The only good thing about this season is Grant Gustin, who always brings his A game, and the 2 episodes I have mentioned, so episode 9 and episode 10 of season 9. So if you are a newcomer, it is entirely up to you how you do it. However, if you have watched the show before, I would just recommend watching episodes 9 and 10 and just finish it off right there. Now going into the spoilers for season 9. Now, we do see returning fan favorites in the episodes I did recommend watching. Like in episode 9, we do have Oliver Queen interacting with Barry, and we do actually see Oliver Queen as the Green Arrow once again, which is insane. We do have Kid Flash in this episode alongside Diggle. Their whole dynamic is just incredible. The way they set the episode up just worked so good, and Bloodwork as a returning multiversal level threat villain was also incredible. It's just an absolutely beautiful episode in my opinion. And for episode 10, we do have the return of Matt Letcher's Eobard Thawne, and we do obviously get that full circle moment going back to the night of Nora Allen's murder, and we get to see everything from the current to Barry's POV, and that's why I would say it's definitely worth watching. It's a big and intense episode, and I would definitely recommend watching it. However, like I said, if you have seen the show before, do not watch anything beyond that episode. This is, in my opinion, the best way to watch the Flash show, as yes, you're still gonna have to go through a couple of tough moments in the seasons later on, but like I said, there are some goods in those seasons that I have mentioned that really do shine, and it would just suck for you to skip them. So this is what I would recommend watching The Flash in this way. I would recommend watching the first 5 seasons, and then season 6 first half, skip season 7 aside from episode 12, go into season 8, watch all of season 8, choose to either end it off right there and watch season 9 episode 9 and watch season 9 episode 10, or you can watch season 9 episode 9 and finish off the show. Either way, you do get a conclusion to the show, but personally, in my opinion, the season 8 finale is definitely a better finale than what we ended up getting in season 9. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all of this. I'm interested to see all of your thoughts towards all of this as well. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.